Welcome. Today we are going to be talking about one of the most talked about but overlooked discussions about software, and that is technical support. What do we do when software has a problem? In today's discussion, we're going to look at different things like production support. What does it mean to actually support our product? In past discussions, we've talked about software development lifecycle, software test lifecycle, difference in how to write code, how to debug our code, and how to test it. Now, we really haven't talked too much about deployments and production, but that's where we're going to focus on today. How do we support our product and our customer? We're going to look at the different types of problems that can arise, how we can troubleshoot these problems, different ways that we can fix these problems. Finally, we're going to look at the different ways we can prevent this from happening in the future. Let's start by talking about production support. So, production support is where we have a group of people or person that answers the phones or our customer requests when they're having problems, when things aren't going right. These could be simple things where users can't log in, the application crashes, different things that happen with the customer. So the whole role of production support or customer support is to basically be that initial point of contact for the company between the customer and our software. Their main goal is to gather and collect the information from the customer, from the client. What is going wrong? What is your problem? And then they go through and they prioritize the customer's complaints or problems. One of the things you have to think about from a developer's perspective is we're behind the scenes. We're writing code, we're going through our release cycles, and we're putting software out to the customers. We're taking in requests and producing output. But within this release cycle, within this software development cycle, we have to also support customers. We have to fix potential bugs or issues that arise that were not expected during the initial software process. One thing to think about from a support perspective is they have to basically look at the application from the customer's perspective. They have to put themselves in the customer's shoes. As they're troubleshooting this with the customer, they're dealing with potentially angry people that may have had to wait, depending upon how big your company is, to actually talk to a representative. So when, as developers, we're dealing with customer support or production issues, we need to be mindful of what these people are dealing with. They're trying to support our application for us. They're the frontline supporters. Think of them as like the 911 responders. They are the ones answering the phones. They're dealing with people in crisis. So it's a very stressful job. A lot of times, production, from a business perspective, it's great. They're helping our customers. From a development perspective, sometimes it can be a little rocky. We can butt heads a little bit because from a user's perspective, a bug might not really be a bug. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But the main point is production support is our first line of defense to find and fix any problems that come from the customer. If the customer's having a problem, our software's not working correctly, the customers will report it. Then customer support, production support will take that information and then relay it to the company so it can be fixed. What are some types of problems? We can have things like the wonderful Windows blue screen of death, which basically means our application has had a fault or some critical failure where the application does not respond anymore. It is down. Particular problems like this are typically a critical priority. These have to be fixed immediately. The software doesn't work, the customer is down, and we have lots of issues. So this is just one example of what a problem could arise. Other types of problems could be things from a customer support perspective, or is this a customer-facing problem? Is this a bug or an issue that is impacting our customers right now? Is this an internal bug? Is our application something that is used within the organization itself? Our customers are not impacted, but the business itself is impacted. Is it a configuration change, a new implementation for a customer that just came on using our software? Is the software not configured? Is it potentially a code problem? Did we just put out a release and now the next day, all of a sudden our customers can't log in, or the login page is missing, or critical functionality is broken? Could it be a network issue? Are the users unable to connect to the internet? Are they unable to connect to our software? Is there a communication issue across the network? Is there some type of back-end problem? Finally, the last one could potentially be a hardware issue. Is there hard drive failure? Is there machine failure? Like what we just had before I started this presentation, I had a microphone failure, so people couldn't hear audio. So you could potentially have hardware issues. And then the crux of it is sometimes you have a combination of all of these. So customer support, production support has to be mindful not only of the customer, but they have to be knowledgeable and understand the different types of problems that can arise and how to triage them and prioritize them so that a customer is not down. We get the right players involved to fix the problem. Once they identify that we have a problem, and if it is a critical problem, we immediately get the development involved or the managers involved to help support this. We go into a troubleshooting mode. We have to determine the type of severities of this particular issue. Is it the customer able to work? Is the customer down? But truly, the first thing you want to do is be mindful. Take a breath, talk to the customer, and don't panic. Because if the customer calls you, a lot of times they're going to be in a frenzy. They're going to be upset, or they are going to be panicky because they can't log in. They can't do their work. Something is wrong. So I took my favorite icon here from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, our little don't panic guy. Don't panic. Stop. Take a breath. So again, you're going to try to reproduce the problem. We're going to engage with the end user, collect the information, try to walk through, figure out where the problem is, what's going on with the end user, and what's broken. Then we could potentially look at system logs. We could see if there were system alerts, if this is like a backend database, potential servers going down. There could be many different factors that you could look at to help troubleshoot the problem. But a lot of the things that come out of troubleshooting the problem is first, customer support looks at the priority. Is the customer unable to log in? Could be a low priority, could be a medium priority. Another priority could simply be that, the system is down. We're getting a 400 error or page not found error, in which case it's a very high priority or critical priority. And when we start troubleshooting it, we could determine that this is actually a low severity because the customer can't log in because they forgot their passwords. So they just need to go reset their password. Problem fixed. In the case of the system being down, well, that's a high severity. We probably have to go restart the servers. If the servers don't restart, we then have to start really going into triage mode and start fixing the problem. So once we troubleshoot the problem, the customers reported the problem. We've now troubleshooted. We've dug into the problem a little bit to make sure that we do have an actual problem, that it is something that we need to pass along, get more people involved. We then pull everyone together. So we've identified a bug. Now what? Once you have all the players involved, you sit down and you identify the risk of the problem. This helps you identify that priority and severity. You're going to look at things like, what is the threat? Is this a new incident with potential harm to the system? Is this a bug? Is this a vulnerability? Is this a known issue or weakness that can be exploited? Could this be a patching issue? So you take those things and then you evaluate that risk, the potential for damage when a threat is exploited or a vulnerability is found. So these are just some things you have to look for and troubleshoot as you go through the process of troubleshooting these applications, these problems. Now, once the customers reported the issue, we've identified the problem, we have set the risk. Now we have to look at an option or what path do we want to go down to fix this problem. Are we going to need to do a hot fix, a maintenance, or a bug fix? So let's look at the different types of options we have here to address this. First and foremost, if this is a major production issue and it's something that you could potentially fix real time, then you do something like a hot fix. which is a fix on a live active software or application. So you actually physically go into the software, quickly make the change, and redeploy. Very minimal testing, very risky, but if the system's already down, what choice do you have? You go in, you fix the problem, and you quickly get it out there so that you have zero to minimal downtime for the end user. It also means that the fix is immediately live on all systems. Now, this is great and it addresses the problem and potentially gets the system back up, fixes the customer's issue. Great, we move on. However, hot fixes are dangerous because you're hyper focused on one particular area of the software. You're not looking at the big picture. You're only looking at the problem as reported by the end user. If you get into the habit of doing hot fixes, step back and looking at the big picture, you potentially could be fixing that particular customer's issue, but you could also potentially be putting in additional risk or vulnerabilities into the application that could impact other customers as a whole. So a hotfix is great to quickly fix and get the system back online. It's not typically an approach you want to take. Basically, the system is down, that there is a major catastrophic failure that needs to be fixed immediately to get all your customers happy. Another approach is patching. So we get a list of reported bugs or issues from the end users. These are not necessarily critical issues, meaning the customer can still do their job. There's just some problems with the software it's a little buggy, it's quirky. It's not working entirely as expected. They can still do their job, but they have to find workarounds for what they're doing. So it's not an ideal process. In that case, we go through a software maintenance cycle or software release cycle, and we create a patch. It's a temporary fix on a product. So here, what we do is we go through, we create a small release cycle, fix the issues that we've identified, and we wrap the software up and we push it out as a release, as a small patch release. And this typically is pushed out to the end users by either some type of automatic update system, or if it is a server fix, you're going to be updating the applications directly. If you're dealing with standalone applications or packaged software, you may potentially have to send a disk out to a customer. Now, in the age of the internet and software as a service, 99% of these patches are done through automatic updates. They're basically pushed out to the customer. In some cases, the customers do need to go to the sites and actually download the patch that they need. Patches typically are not always pushed out to everyone. Typically, a patch is generated, pushed up, and then a customer can come download it as they need it. Now, if a patch ultimately is deemed to fix the issue long term, then it will go into the full release package or release cycle, and then everyone gets the update. And typically, these are planned between releases of the software. So, a patch is not a full release cycle. It's a small software fix to address the problem that goes through a small release cycle. Whereas the hotfix, you just immediately fix it and deploy it. Next to no testing, next to no development cycle. You are fixing this real time. I'm going to skip over maintenance for a minute, and we'll talk about bug fixes. So we've talked about hotfix and patching. So hotfix, again, is real time. Fix it right now. Make the customer happy. Patching, okay, we've got a couple bug fixes or a couple bugs or issues reported by the customer. We can bundle those together. We can put them through a small release cycle. We can test them, make sure everything's working, and then actually push it out after a couple of days or a week, depending upon your release cycle. Now, with bug fixing, when you hear bug fixes, this is typically where we actually identify the bugs during the actual software development cycle. So bug fixes are actually issues that we find during the development cycle. This is where testing finds a problem, fixes the problem, identifies the problem, documents it, pushes it to development to be fixed. When it comes to bug fixing, there is zero impact to the users because we are addressing the bugs real time during the development cycle. So any bugs that are identified should be fixed within the release cycle. So when we go to release, once we get down into after the testing phase and the release phase, once the application goes out, there should be no potential bugs or risks to the end user. Now, we say this, but there are always things that potentially can arise during the software development process. And that's why we have customer support, production support, because at the end of the day, we build this software and we're writing code. We're trying to do things in such a way that meets the requirements specified by the end users. So the business gives us the requirements and we try to write them. The problem is sometimes those specifications or those business requirements are actually used by the customer in an unexpected way, which potentially can cause problems and requires additional code fixes. That's why we get into maintenance cycle. We get into that routine of constantly going back through and doing software updates, which leads us to the maintenance option. So the maintenance here is a fix on live action, active software or an application. This has a visible impact via downtime or system restart. And maintenance is typically when we do a planned outage. So we communicate to our customers that we are going to be down for system maintenance, for software maintenance. It's a maintenance. We have to bring the system down for a little bit, so our software will not be available. Banks do this regularly so that they can restart their systems. They can apply patches to their backend servers or even put in major software updates. But they do it in a planned maintenance approach. Because, yes, they have release cycles for bigger organizations, especially financial. They can't necessarily do them on the fly. They can do them somewhat on the fly for internal. But if it is an external facing, especially with banks, you have to do it in some type of maintenance window so that you can have a planned outage. So people know that they cannot access their financial information. It's very critical that they know that they can't because of maintenance, that there isn't a critical failure and that their money is not at risk. So these are the four major options you have for addressing bug fixes and how we can go through the software process and fix the problem. There's a couple caveats here. The idea is to constantly follow through the software development cycle. We want to make sure that we document the bug. We want to make sure we create some type of ticket outlining what happened. We want to make sure we go through some type of review process, look at the requirements, documentation, and look at this particular bug and make sure things work. Then we want to get all the players together to discuss how to address the particular problem. Maybe include the customer, get their feedback, figure out what's going on at the end user. Then we want to go through, fix the code, test, deploy, and retest. So really, you want to go through that full software cycle. You want to make sure that not only are you fixing the problem, but you're not introducing any new problems or threats. However, we can't necessarily do that all the time. Like I said, we can do that for a patch and we can do that for a maintenance. But typically, if our system is down, if we have that blue screen of death and a restart does not fix our application, we need to go back in and fix it now. So we go in and do a hot fix.